Welcome back to Top 5.
Five, the egging murders. Every year, Halloween is marked by mischievous pranks, kids running wild, throwing eggs, and giggling as they dash away. However, in the late 1990s, this harmless tradition soured with violence, leaving behind a string of victims. Among the most notorious incidents occurred on Halloween night in 1998, when a confrontation over a simple act of vandalism turned fatal. Carl Jackson, a 21-year-old man, found himself in the wrong place at the wrong time after his girlfriend's car was egged by a group of teenagers in the Bronx, New York. Enraged by the immature act, Jackson confronted the group, framing a mere prank into a tempest of violence. It was a moment that spiraled out of control when Curtis Sterling, a 17-year-old in the group feeling cornered and threatened, pulled a gun and shot Carl in the neck. The aftermath of Jackson's tragic death dripped with sorrow beyond words, a life extinguished over something as trivial as an egg. His murder marked just the tip of the iceberg when it came to Halloween violence. An extensive investigation revealed horrifying statistics. From 1984 to 2010, at least 24 attacks leading to serious injury or death were documented, all ignited by disputes over egging or similar pranks. Community leaders and law enforcement railed against this emerging culture of violence, desperately seeking to find a solution for rising crime rates linked to Halloween revelries. The legacy of Carl Jackson resonated deeply within his community. It was a grim reminder of how quickly fun can turn fatal. His death sparked dialogues surrounding youth violence, etching an indelible mark on the celebration that should otherwise be filled with joy. The lessons surrounding the fragility of life ripple on, reminding everyone to think before acting and consider the implications of their actions, especially when wielding something as innocuous as an egg. 4. The killing one student Yoshihiro Yoshi Hattori. The year was 1992, and Halloween approached in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where excitement buzzed among young partygoers preparing for a night of fright and fun. 16-year-old Yoshihiro Yoshi Hattori, an enthusiastic Japanese exchange student, was eager to embrace the American tradition of Halloween, illuminated by the festive decorations adorning homes and the thrill of costumes. However, a simple navigational error would mark this night for tragedy rather than triumph. Yoshi and his friend, hoping to attend a Halloween party, found themselves lost. They spotted a house decorated in Halloween flair that matched the address they had been given. Eager to join the festivities, they approached the front door. Rodney Pierres, a 30-year-old resident of the home, opened the door expecting to see trick-or-treaters. Instead, he was met by two unfamiliar faces, their excitement palpable. Yet, he misinterpreted their intentions as a potential threat. Without a moment's hesitation, Pierres retrieved a firearm and shot Yoshi point blank in the chest. The horror of this moment echoes endlessly, a life cut short due to a misunderstanding. Initially, Pierres faced no charges. The authorities deemed the shooting an act of self-defense, a conclusion that sent shockwaves through the community and Yoshi's home in Japan. The Hattoris, filled with grief, turned their sadness into activism, advocating against gun violence and for stronger regulations. When the case finally went to trial years later, a divided jury ultimately acquitted Pierres, branding the shooting as justified. Yet, questions lingered in the air. What if those boys had found the right house? What if Yoshi hadn't been so eager? The specter of what-ifs haunts those left behind, forever marking Halloween night in 1992 as a time of tragedy rather than celebration. The death of Yoshi Hattori remains a chilling reminder of the consequences of fear amid misunderstanding and the pervasive ripple effects of gun violence that continue to permeate American society. 3. The murder of Martha Moxley. Amid laughter and excitement, the crisp autumn night of October 30th, 1975, was supposed to be just another Halloween in the affluent community of Greenwich, Connecticut. 15-year-old Martha Moxley was last seen laughing and playing with friends, embodying the essence of youthful exuberance. But as the veil of night thickened, it would become a harbinger of tragedy. When Martha's body was discovered the following day lying in her own backyard, the community was plunged into shock. She had been bludgeoned to death with a golf club, a staggering twist in an otherwise cheerful time of costumes and candy. The investigation soon turned towards the Skakel family, their neighborhood connection making them the initial focus of attention. Martha had been seen with Thomas Skakel and identified as part of the inner circle of the Skakels, an influential family in the area. Despite a fervent investigation, the case stagnated for years, compelling the local authorities to grapple with a growing sense of unease. The mystery deepened as time passed without resolution. Then, in 2000, Michael Skakel, Thomas's younger brother, was charged with Martha's murder. His trial sparked fervent media attention, chronicling the wealthy Skakel family intertwined with Kennedy connections, a tumultuous mix of privilege clashing with justice. After being convicted, Michael served 10 years before claiming that his defense had been inadequately represented. He was later released in 2013 when a judge vacated his conviction, reigniting discussions about both the case and the potential for privilege to influence justice. In an almost surreal twist of fate, on October 30, 2020, exactly 45 years after Martha's murder, the state announced they would not retry him. This deviation raised even more questions, angering those who sought justice for Martha. The tragic unraveling of this case reveals not only the failures of the judicial system but also the societal tendencies to overlook accountability when wealth and connections cloud justice. Martha Moxley's name became emblematic of the countless victims who fall through cracks in the judicial system. Her murder serves as a haunting reminder of how privilege can sidestep justice, leaving families to grapple with unresolved grief and the unanswered question of why. 2. The Lisk family massacre. As Halloween approached on October 31, 2010, the homes in a peaceful suburb of Columbus, Ohio, resonated with laughter as families prepared for trick-or-treating. However, what unfolded that night would leave a permanent scar in the fabric of the community, a tragedy that would highlight the dark side of familial bonds. William B.J. Lisk had long struggled with mental illness, battling inner demons that would ultimately emerge with devastating consequences. On Halloween night, he inflicted unspeakable horror upon his own family, brutally murdering his father, William Lisk, his stepmother, Susan Lisk, and his 23-year-old stepbrother, Derek Griffin. The events leading up to their deaths were as shocking as the murders themselves. BJ attacked his victim as they slept, using a claw hammer and later a firearm, showcasing a violent rampage that would end with 3 lives extinguished. When a family member arrived the next day and discovered the bodies, disbelief crept in. The scene was so horrifying it mirrored a grisly Halloween prank rather than a family tragedy. A community reeling in shock and disbelief descended into chaos as the reality sunk in. This was no mere misfortune, it was a massacre carried out by someone who emerged from within the haven of home. Evidence later indicated Susan had suffered sexual assault either prior to or following her death, adding layers of terror and sadness to an already incomprehensible crime. B.J. Lisk, after pleading guilty, was sentenced to prison. However, the damage was irreparable. As the years passed in incarceration, B.J. struggled with his own demons, ultimately committing suicide in prison in 2015. His death left lingering questions about mental health awareness and the ability of families to recognize signs of potential violence before tragedy struck. The Lisk family massacre left wounds deeper than anyone realized. It forced families to confront their own vulnerabilities, to reassess the silence that often surrounds mental health issues, and to understand that what appears to be a festive holiday can quickly dissolve into unspeakable horror. 1. The infamous Candy Man. Topping this grim list is a story that has become synonymous with the ominous fears of Halloween, the tale of the Candy Man. This horrifying true account from October 31, 1974, serves as a reminder that the treats we receive on Halloween can harbor deadly secrets. Timothy O'Brien, an enthusiastic 8-year-old, was ready to maximize the day's festivities by trick-or-treating through his Houston neighborhood with his father, Ronald O'Brien, and his sister. As they roamed, Ronald, eager to please, distributed candy, among which he had specifically poisoned one treat, a pixie sticks filled with cyanide. Unbeknownst to Timothy, his father had filled the top 2 inches of the candy straw with cyanide in hopes of cashing in on a life insurance policy he had taken out on each of his children. The night took a dark turn when Timothy selected the poisoned pixie sticks from his goodie bag and, under the watchful eye of Ronald, consumed the lethal candy, washing away the bitter taste with Kool-Aid. Timothy's death became the harbinger of horror, and as news of the poisoned candy circulated, it ignited a widespread panic across the nation, with parents tossing out their children's Halloween treats in fear of potential poisoning. While rumors abounded regarding tainted candy, Timothy was the only child ever known to have died from such an act, the gruesome truth lurking in the shadows of Halloween festivities. When Ronald O'Brien was arrested, a sinister plot unfolded. His motive was laid bare. He hoped to claim a small fortune in life insurance that he had taken out on each of his children, believing he could orchestrate a scenario where he would unjustly benefit from their demise. It was a shocking betrayal that rocked the community and horrified a nation. In 1975, Ronald faced trial and was convicted of murder. He was sentenced to death, marking him forever as the Candyman, a name that conjured nightmares for parents and children alike. Even in prison, the legacy of his crime persisted. Ronald O'Brien was executed in 1984, but the haunting memories of that Halloween night would never fade. The case left an indelible mark on American culture, spawning an ongoing campaign of vigilance surrounding Halloween safety. Events led to increased awareness of child safety and education, emphasizing the need for parents to be aware of the risks associated with trick-or-treating. The darkness of Ronald O'Brien's actions was a gruesome nadir that turned a time of joy into a season rife with apprehension.